Hey, what's up? Welcome to my channel. I'm Kyla and I talk about the stock market amongst other things. And today I'm going to be talking about Janet Yellen and Doge. Two things that belong in the same sentence. If you haven't been following the financial markets lately, things have been a little weird to say the least. I'm a little bummed because right now my TikTok video, I post daily market updates to TikTok. Right now, my daily market update is under review. It's about the national debt. So I don't know what they're reviewing, but it's under review. I'm a little bit sad, feeling like I'm letting people down right now. But you know what? It'll be all right. About Janet Yellen and Dogecoin, two things that deserve to have our attention. Have rates that are really low, it makes money pretty easy to access. So loans are a little bit easier to access. Money is just more free flowing, especially now where they've expanded the money supply by 30%. There's just a lot more money floating around. Surplus of dollars. Dollar. So, but people also want more goods. And so, people are gonna go invest in Doge, but they're also gonna be like, hey, I want a new iPhone, I want a new car, I want a new home. The home is like, really, that's what's going on with the lumber market. And the renovation market is everybody wants new. This creates an endless loop of I call this the easy money flywheel. It's my invention. Low rates, and then that leads to easy money, that leads to excess dollars, that leads to speculation, that leads to demand, and then that leads to financing by the Fed. So it starts off with low rates, so the Fed has low rates, and then that creates an easy money environment. That easy money environment creates excess dollars, so those dollars have to go find a home, and they find a home either in speculation or demand, and then that demand feeds into financing for companies. I'm not saying I'm an economist, but I'm not saying this isn't the next Nobel Prize winning thesis. The easy money flywheel. Yellen, who used to be the chair of the Federal Reserve and now is Treasury Secretary, actually spoke out against that on accident yesterday, I think. I don't know if it was an accident or not, but she was basically like, we might need to raise rates. And she's not wrong. She's not wrong. We might need to raise rates at some point. 2013 to 2017, she was chair of the Federal Reserve. That makes sense. And so she's really used to talking about rates. Slipped her Fed hat on and she was like, yeah, maybe we do need to raise rates. And everyone was like, no, Janet, that's not your lane. Fiscal and monetary policy need to remain separate, Janet. Stepped her line. She said fiscal policy. So it's fiscal policy and then monetary policy. And there's a big line in the middle and you're not supposed to walk across that line. But that's exactly what Yellen did. She's over here on fiscal policy. So she manages the treasury stuff. So everything that the government, the actual government as we think of government decides is in fiscal policy or to the monetary policy side, which is run by the Federal Reserve, which is supposed to be independent. And so she was like, independent? I don't think you are. I think you should report to me, Janet Yellen. And then there was this other thing where it was like Biden agrees with her. The Fed has really little to no interest in raising rates. Jerome Powell at least wants things to remain pretty easy for a while until we get employment under control. So it was, she had this big retraction where she was like, oh my God, everybody, just kidding. I don't think that we need to raise rates. You all are so silly for believing in me. I didn't mean it. Stop. The backtracking. It reminded me of somebody who's running backwards really fast. She was just like, oh my God, I'm just joking. Forget about me. I'm just Janet. Just Janet and Jerome. J&J. They were not synced up that day. She spoke out, and this is something that Powell has adamantly spoken out against, raising rates. He does not want to raise rates. It was kind of weak that morning, but it sent everything into a frenzy. The VIX jumped, the indexes experienced a lot of intraday movement, and it was this whole thing where it's like, geez, all she said was maybe. But the market was still like, whoa. raising rates in this economy? Also, I got a blue light. You want to see the different colors? This one I think is blue. This one is yellow. This one is blue. And then this one is blue. And I can turn it up. So if you really want to get scared. Ew! Oh my god. So yeah, like... Anyway, how reliant the market is on these certain buzzwords. Taper, higher rates, inflation, stimulus, taxes. It's all based on sentiment, on words and communication. And that's why people, just specifically with Jerome Powell and the Fed, whoever the Fed chair is at the time, they read into what they say. Because it's not about what actually is happening sometimes. It's about what people are saying is happening. And this gets into Doge. So Doge, oh. Do you have any Doge stands in the chat? Doge, most of Doge value comes from words and memes. They do have a core developer team, so it's a real thing. Most of that increase has been from people like Elon Musk. Speculation in crypto right now is pretty high. You have things like ASS coin, as well as scam coin, and then you got other coins. Kind of feels like a ringleader almost of like the meme coin movement. But with Doge, the value is really in supply and demand. Everything. This is like one thing I've been really thinking about. You can tell I've been thinking. Supply and demand. At the end of the day, everything is supply and demand. Where we have enough supply of something that people want to demand it. The value in meme coins, because it's like, well, if there's supply and there's demand, you have a market. It's a real thing. It's just what we assign it to. It's an abstraction of value. All these things are only what we make them to be. If the US dollar is not tied to gold, it's not backed by gold, you could theoretically say the exact same thing. US dollar is only determined by supply and demand of US dollars. Foreign governments want the US dollars. We want US dollars so we can buy ourselves stuff and spend them on fun things and pay bills. Doge, somebody's willing to throw up their fiat and somebody's willing to give them Doge in return. And that's good enough. It's supply and demand. Memes drive the value of Doge. So like every time Elon Musk post a meme, that's going to inflate the value of Doge by a certain percentage point. And then the US dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the US government. What's the difference? And obviously there's a difference, right? So the US government has military power, it has supply chains, it has government contracts, it has citizens. Doge has none of that. Is money real? If more people want to use Doge versus use USD, like what's stopping Doge from becoming the reserve currency besides any obstacles of the US government? Moving the very big variable of like the actual US government from the equation, none. There's really no difference. Nick Majoli has a chart where if you invested all of your stimulus checks into Doge, you would be up real big. There's probably some person somewhere that invested all of their stimulus into Doge. So they're doing good. Key questions, would the money in Doge be better spent on other crypto projects? What happens when Doge actually crashes? The pros of Doge, do these meme coins drive interest in Doge overall? Is this fractional interest in Doge going to drive more interest into the space forevermore? Are memes themselves valuable? Does Doge actually translate into the broader value of crypto and the adoption of crypto? And what does the Doge community mean? Idea, nice place to hang out. Maybe we're just collabing. Like maybe this is the future. Like this quote unquote speculation, maybe that's the new market economy. Paying attention to Doge. And does that attention command some sort of premium? Is collective belief in an asset enough to drive value? I DK. I freaking DK. and these are all hypotheticals. You can't pay your taxes with Doge. If the US government switches to the CBDC, maybe they could build that on the back of Doge. But other than that, I don't think the US government is too interested. Economy is like really wanting to consume right now because we have the reopening demand, just like a lot of money trying to find a home still. So the surplus of money feeds into the shortage in commodities because people are demanding certain goods. They're like, I want this, I want that. And then also the supply chains are not set up for this increase in demand. Not enoughness going around. Bitcoin, if you will. It's a supply chain effect where the Fed needs to keep rates low. And when they keep rates low, that creates easy money. Physical stuff, so you have these commodities, you have actual shortage in physical goods, and Doge and policy are not gonna solve that. Create incentives, but it can't create the actual physical product. Duh. And so I love this quote so much. Trade does indeed affect traders' behavior and thus freight prices. This is from Breakwave Dry Shipping Bulk ETF, which is like one of the top performing ETFs of the year because dry bulk shipping has gotten so expensive. Behavior drives prices. Who would have thunk? And to have it like laid out so nicely, trade does indeed affect behaviors and thus prices. Oh, splendid. Sentiment, communication, and reactions. So we do have to pay attention to the physical. And with the supply chains, there's a lot of bubbles bubbling up. And, you do actually have the physical shortages, but a lot of the physical shortages are caused by words and sentiment and people saying like, oh no, I'm worried that like things aren't going to recover, or we're not going to expand right now because we don't think that things are going to recover. And so, at the end of the day, that does boil down into one variable being words and being sentiment and being reactions. And so when you boil it all down, it is all words. What do Janet Yellen and Dogecoin have in common? So Doge is an iteration of Janet Yellen, but in coin form. I know. You're like, Kyla. Oh my God, you're like, Kyla, what are you saying? Janet Yellen called out a flaw in the system. Rates might need to rise if the economy overheats. Dogecoin calls out a flaw in the system too. It says, hey, like money doesn't feel real anymore because things don't need to be fairly valued, right? Doge is throwing fundamental value out the window. You don't need to have a good PE ratio in order to gain traction. Doge either has an infinite PE ratio or a 0 PE ratio. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter because it's determined by supply and demand. If you want to buy some Doge, there's somebody on the other side of that equation willing to sell you some right now, at least. We'll see when it crashes what happens, but if it crashes. And then, so with Yellen's backtrack, so what she said was right. They wouldn't have made her retract if they had agreed with it. It just shows how far we are from tapering and like having the ability to actually pull back from easy monetary policy. Yellen inadvertently was rebelling against the system. I know, it's cuckoo. But Doge responds to words too, just like the market did when Yellen spoke. So Doge is driven by people like the Winklevosses, Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, people who are rich in fiat dollars, getting on Twitter and pumping this coin and saying that, oh yes, I do believe in this coin. I do believe that it has value. And so should you, because I, rich person, think it does. Or like, sure, rich person, I believe in you, amongst other things. I believe in the developers, maybe. I believe in the community behind the crypto. I believe in Doge. And then all of a sudden, Doge value, it rises. I really like this quote. The rise of crypto is funny to me because it really makes it uncomfortable for all the people who claim to understand why things are valued, what they are. Traditional finance commentary is largely tarot card reading dressed up in expensive suits. Bullwhip effect. Supply chains are everywhere, which means bullwhip effects are everywhere too. If you have perfect information, you can react sensibly to changes in the real world. But if your information consists of other people's reactions, it's worth asking, will everyone misread things in the same direction? Are we all listening to the same music? And because of that, are we all making the same decisions? And because of that, are we all moving things forward in a way that doesn't quote unquote make sense, but actually makes perfect sense? The Doge supply chain, the Fed supply chain, the commodity supply chain, it's all based on reaction and interpretation. And that's why Doge has value. And that's why what Yellen says matters, and what Jerome says, and what everyone says at the top like that. Why production capacities matter too, because of reactions and sentiment. Because it's all a supply chain, everything's feeding into one another. Everything is a supply chain driven by words and sentiment. The only differences are inputs and outputs. The frick, right? I hope I just blew your freaking mind. I blew my own mind. If you want to hear me talk for 1 minute every day, I normally do that once a day on TikTok, but I'm under review right now. If you have any feedback, thoughts, comments, suggestions, questions, please leave them in the comments. I try my best to answer all my comments and emails and DMs and stuff. If you liked this video and you like to hear me talk about the stock market, I do that here too. So if you want to give it a thumbs up, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe, go ahead and subscribe. I seriously appreciate it. So thanks for hanging out, and I will see you on Friday. Bye.